Begin with the Ghana Police Service, and the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Dampare, has taken an exception to a recent research in corruption, which put the Ghana Police Service #1 on the rankings. Again, Dr. Dampare, in a 14-point statement, rejected findings that place the police service as the most corrupt public institution in Ghana. The IGP says it is the considered view the research and its findings are heavily challenged and corrupted from both an academic and practical point of view. Now, let me run by you some of the highlights from that 14-point statement, which will be showing up shortly on your screens there. So he says it is our considered view that the research and its findings are heavily challenged and corrupt from both the academic and practice point of view. It also goes on to say that a further scrutiny of the reports which shows that your two institutions, SHRAJ and the Ghana Statistical Service, were also not part of the research, and we're wondering why you do not think they are also candidates for corruption investigations, considering that they also provide critical services. It also goes on to state that they also want to place on record that we are passionate about this, since the continuous empirically and scientifically unsubstantiated labeling of the police as the most corrupt institution in the country only goes to feed this perception and damage the reputation of the police service, as well as weaken the morale of its personnel. And finally, it also says there is also the real risk that your research may have been affected by a historically pervasive stereotyping of the police service, and the police service has also almost now become the default institution of choice for such research, and has therefore encouraged a deep-seated public stereotype over the years. So here are some of the pointers from Dr. George Dampare there. But let's seek the thoughts of a security analyst on this particular subject and engage Dr. Adam Bona. He's in the studio with us. Many thanks for your time, Doc. Now,
thank you.
What would you make of Dr. Dampare's assertions, with regarding these two reports, which are placing the Ghana Police Service as the most corrupt institution in Ghana?
Well, yes. Good afternoon to your viewers. If any researcher who picks the corruption report or the surveys that have been conducted, if you take, I'm sure he responded to the Ghana Statistical Service and the SHRAJ one. Mm-hmm. If you take it, you realize any researcher who picks it, there are a lot of gaps in there, because then you would have to look critically to find the objective of the research. You would have to look again critically to understand what the methodology was. And as you go in, you notice that there are some instances. I have asked that what is even their margin of error? You don't find it there. There are several things that they indicated. That is not to say the work they've done, we should shred it into pieces, but it lacks some clarity.
Okay.
And so the moment it lacks clarity, you want to say the credibility of the research itself is in question.
Okay, Dr. But I'll let you hold on for that. But let's go on Zoom now and engage a research analyst at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD, Guildford Esiama, Boateng there. I mean, many thanks for your time, Wilfred. Now, there has to, there's an issue regarding the methodology and how you came up with the fact that indeed the Ghana Police Service is the most corrupt institution in Ghana. How did you come, how did you come by these results?
Well, first of all, let me indicate that we are talking about two different reports. The one done by SHRAJ together with Ghana's Statistical Service, and the one that is produced by Afrobarometer. Except that there are the two outcomes, I think, are the same. The police ranks on top so far as perception and even experience, people's experience of corruption are concerned. In Afrobarometer, we sampled 2,400 adult Ghanaians across all the 16 regions, and it's a nationally representative sample with a margin of error of plus or minus 2. So we have a 95% confidence level in the findings that we churn out. So in this survey, we asked people how many people or how many of the following people do you think are involved in corruption, or haven't you heard enough about them to say? And we provide them with a list of institutions. And in the survey, majority of Ghanaians had indicated that either most or all of police people are corrupt. And you move from there and you go to the office of the president and all the other people that we have named.
Okay, now,
in
Gilfred,
addition to this,
how do you respond to the IGP's assertions that indeed the report he actually described the reports as heavily challenged and corrupt? So how do you describe to that? How do you respond to that?
Well, I think that the report is very credible. In the past, we've seen the police working with this report to try and then resolve some of the perception that people have about the institution. So I think if they can look through the data, and especially with Afrobarometer that provide them with trend, you will realize that at certain points, the perception of corruption within the police service had dropped. And I think it dropped in two different surveys. That shows that the police can do something to reduce the perception of corruption.
All right. Now, let me come back to you, Studio Dr. Bona. Now, does it matter that indeed the police service has raised certain flags with these, corruption perception indexes? Because he said also that these institutions also did not account or did not include themselves in this report. What do you make of that?
Well, if you look at the CDD one, they included what's the called? You call it CSOs. CDD itself is a CSO, an NGO. You want to label it that way. But that of the Ghana Statistical Service and the Commission of Human Rights, yes, they didn't capture themselves. But if you look at, according to the response from the IGP, if you look at it hypothetically, if they had included themselves, because then you realize that all the other groups they put there, everyone was deemed to be corrupt. And all of these organizations seem to be, connected to government in one way or the other. And so if those two institutions that conducted the research had included themselves, then probably the probability that they themselves would have been labeled as corrupt would have been would have been a fact, and so would have been, corroborated by their own research. And so it then begs the question: how then do you take yourself out whilst doing it? I mean, for me, I think that it's important they conducted the research. It's novel that we have two government agencies doing this. It's important, but I think that when you look at, especially their report, there are so many things. I haven't seen recommendations. There are certain things that sometimes you want to see. It helps to, broaden the scope and also direct what they should be doing. And also, when you actually even look at, they use a sample size of about 15,000. I mean, I would want to know. You can see the distribution there, but I am a bit skeptical. I want to know what informed it. If you look at the Ghana Statistical Service, for instance, where I live, no one was counted in that area during the census. And so my point is that they should have included themselves
to
actually...
there's an issue with the distribution?
Yes. So they should have included themselves to see what do others think about them. Because mine is that whoever, talks about equity, you want to ensure that your hands are not, your hands are very clean. So they should have included themselves. But that of CDD, there is something there with CSOs, and I think that you can see CSOs scored, probably not as corrupt as, the police and the presidency, according to their ranking. So I think next time, or they should explain why they didn't. There are several other things I think they didn't deal with.
All right, sure. Let me come back to you, Gilfred. Talking about recommendations, did you make any recommendations available so as to ensure that these institutions can, deal with these issues from the grassroots?
Well, I think from time to time, we've been talking about how public agencies and public officials can tackle corruption. So on this scale, we are just sharing what people think about them. If they want further engagement and they want further conversations as to how we can all help them to tackle the issues and the perception of corruption, we are ready and we are available. But I think we shouldn't miss that picture with some of these controversies. people's perception and people's experience are rare. They come into contact with government agencies and they suffer at the end of the day. So if we have come out with reports giving you what people think about you, I think it is right and proper for you to pay more attention to that and think about the consequences of corruption on the ordinary person than think about, let's say, why are people thinking that I'm corrupt, what methodology, what issues. If we don't provide you with these findings, where do you get people to tell you how well you are doing?
Okay. I want to thank you so much for your time, Guildfred. Guildfred Isiama Boateng there as a research analyst speaking to us. Now, finally, let me wrap up with you, Dr. Bonner. Now, how would they, improve their image going forward, Ghana Police Service?
Well, I think it would have been good that researchers should have included recommendations so that some of us speaking to these things will not be, speaking out of context. Because if they had pointed, then we say, okay, looking at the recommendation, this could have been added. But to answer you directly, what I would say is that some of us have recommended body cameras. Some of us have recommended using, digital means of ensuring that their work is done properly, so that the sport fines, the reason, and most of our laws don't make sense, because then if you pass a law that says that if a small traffic infraction, you take me to court and the court will waste my time for 2 days and, ask me to pay 600 Ghana cedis. I'm likely to push 100 cedis into the police officer's pocket if you let me go. And so let's really look at legislation. Let's really look at, their training. Let's look at how we are going to make the police be, very independent and do their work. In other countries, the police have become cash cow. But when you come into this, our country, whatever little, we are talking about corruption. So if he took 10 cedis, it ends up in his pocket. And most people actually might be forcing to even give them this money. But if there are laws, that makes it easy for me to pay a sport fine. Because as we speak, if I leave your studio and I drive out and a police officer accosted me, chances are that if he tells me you have infringed on the road traffic regulation law, I have no option to pay a sport fine than taking me to the station and then ask me to come to court. Look at the process.
So we should take a
So let's really look at legislative laws and all that to make it easy for citizens to obey the law. Because at the moment, it is a nonsense law is a law that people don't obey, literally.